If you've been anywhere near the internet, walked past a trendy boutique, or even just glanced at a celebrity's handbag recently, chances are you've already seen it. It's this jagged-toothed, strangely endearing little monster called Labubu. But here's the thing. What looks like a simple vinyl toy is actually the centerpiece of a meticulously engineered global phenomenon. So today, in this explainer, we're taking a cinematic deep dive to unpack exactly how a quirky artistic creation managed to completely take over the internet and, frankly, hijack our collective attention.
Right off the bat, we really have to ask ourselves, how did a quirky plastic monster become a multi-billion-dollar dopamine machine? Because I want to be super clear here. This is not a toy review, not even close. What we're doing today is a full-blown psychological and economic investigation. We're going to look under the hood of modern consumer behavior, examine the architecture of hype, and reveal the hidden mechanics that make us aggressively crave things we literally didn't even know existed a few years ago.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer gravity of this, we need to look at the scale. $294 billion? That was the value of the global collectibles market in 2023. And you know what? It's projecting nothing but consistent growth. We are looking at some seriously high-stakes business here. This is an entire economy driven by passion, nostalgia, and this just insatiable desire for exclusivity. And right now, Labubu is the undisputed king of this massive financial ecosystem.
But there's this really stark, almost jarring contrast between those billions of dollars and Labubu's incredibly innocent origins. Meet Ka-Sing Lung. He's the artist who originally created Labubu as part of his The Monsters universe. Long before all the viral hype, Labubu was actually just a way for Lung to cope with his own personal history. He was born in Hong Kong in 1972 and moved to the Netherlands as a young boy. Struggling with a completely new language and culture, he found a lot of comfort in isolation. And it was that quiet isolation that sparked the imagination that would eventually give birth to this mischievous forest spirit.
So what exactly went into the DNA of this character? Well, Lung's parents ran a restaurant, and to kind of stay out of their way, he would sit upstairs by himself, just absorbing everything he could get his hands on. We're talking ancient Nordic elf legends, the Belgian Smurfs, the Finnish Moomins. He even read traditional Chinese wuxia novels just to help retain his native language. All of these wildly different cross-cultural ingredients basically blended together in the mind of an isolated kid in the Netherlands. It's like a giant puzzle that culminated in the creation of a modern-day mythology.
And you know, this phenomenon definitely didn't happen overnight. If we look back at 2015, Labubu was literally just a doodle in Lung's sketchbooks, a background character in his illustrated children's books. By 2017, it started transitioning into the physical world, but only as a super niche, highly limited art toy for serious collectors over in Hong Kong and Taiwan. But the critical inflection point, the exact moment the script flipped, was 2019. That's when Lung signed an exclusive licensing deal with a company called Pop Mart. That single partnership took Labubu from an underground art piece right to the launchpad of a global viral explosion by 2024.
Which brings us to the actual architects of this empire, Pop Mart and its founder Wang Ning. They didn't just sell a toy, they built an entire economic engine around it. You can think of Pop Mart as part IP incubator, part massive scaling machine. Because before them, Labubu was expensive and really hard to find. Pop Mart came in and vertically integrated the whole process. They took control of the design, the manufacturing, and built out this massive network of futuristic retail stores and even vending machines. They completely transformed a unique art piece into a mass-produced cultural juggernaut.
But the real genius is how they sell it. Pop Mart took the innocent, cuddly aesthetic of a premium art toy and fused it directly with the deeply addictive mechanics of, well, an arcade claw machine. This is the infamous blind box model. You aren't just buying a Labu, you are buying a sealed box that contains a totally random Labu from a specific series. They essentially gamified retail, fundamentally rewiring how we interact with physical products.
Let's actually break down the neurobiology of this experience step by step, because it's fascinating. Step 1 is anticipation. The very second you buy that box, your brain's reward system just lights up. Step 2 is the information gap. As humans, we are biologically wired to absolutely hate uncertainty. So withholding what's inside practically forces you to want to solve the mystery. Step 3 is the unboxing itself. This is your dopamine peak, the physical thrill of the reveal. And finally, step 4. Whether you actually get the figure you wanted, the reward, or you don't, the disappointment, your brain immediately generates the urge to repeat the entire cycle. Outcome uncertainty literally hijacks our neurological wiring.
And this whole cycle taps right into what's known as the innate optimism theory.
When people buy these blind boxes, they usually know full well that the odds of pulling the secret, rare figure are incredibly low. We're talking sometimes 1 in 144. And yet, human optimism creates this luck mentality. Buyers wildly overestimate their own chances of beating those odds. It is the exact same psychological driver as rolling dice at a craps table in a casino, just disguised in adorable, brightly colored packaging.
So who is actually buying all of these? Well, surprise, it's largely adults. And this brings us to the concept of kidult culture. This is a massive, growing market trend where adults actively engage in childhood activities, entirely fueled by nostalgia and escapism. For millennials and Gen Z, who are out there facing the constant stress of the modern world, these toys act as really powerful emotional compensatory objects. They aren't just plastic figures to them. They provide a socially acceptable, tactile sense of comfort. It's a brief, safe escape from adult responsibilities.
But look, you don't reach billions of dollars in sales in a vacuum. You need the crowd. Purchasing decisions just aren't made individually anymore. They're driven by community and shared digital experiences. The act of unboxing itself has become this huge communal event. When the algorithm pushes millions of peer-generated TikTok unboxings into our daily feeds, and then global megastars like Lisa from Blackpink are suddenly seen hanging Labus from their luxury handbags, it triggers massive herd behavior. That shared cultural experience creates an overwhelming fear of missing out, FOMO, and that's what binds the community together.
At this point, Labubu isn't just a physical toy anymore. It is a performative, social object that's been perfectly engineered for the internet. It exists to be styled, filmed, and shared with your peers. Having a rare Labubu sitting on your desk or clipped to your backpack communicates to everyone else that you are plugged into the current cultural zeitgeist. It's a digital status symbol brought right into the physical world, validating your place within the community. Now, you might be wondering, how do they maintain this manic level of desire without people just getting bored? 2 words: engineered scarcity. Pop Mart employs a brilliant, albeit pretty ruthless, marketing strategy. They strictly control the supply. They release new series in highly limited drops that are mathematically designed to sell out in minutes. By making absolutely sure that supply never ever fully meets demand, they create a permanent state of panic buying among consumers. They're forcing people into digital queues, acting like they're trying to score front-row concert tickets.
And of course, this artificial scarcity births a ferocious secondary market. Just look at the numbers. A standard blind box retails for maybe 20 or 30 bucks, but on the resale market, it can easily flip for hundreds. If you manage to hit a secret variant, you're looking at a 40x markup. And those larger mega collections, they regularly go for thousands of dollars. This secondary market mirrors high-end streetwear and sneakerhead culture flawlessly. These collectors aren't just buying toys anymore, they're actively trading speculative financial assets. Honestly, if you need proof of just how absurd this secondary market has become, $150,000, that is the actual amount a human-sized first-generation Labubu sold for at a specialized art auction recently. When a vinyl figure commands the price of a luxury sports car, you know for sure that you are witnessing a profound shift in how our society assigns value to cultural artifacts. So, who ultimately wins this game? Well, the house always wins, right? Pop Mart's market valuation recently surged past $40 billion. Their stock jumped nearly 600% in a single year. That staggering number highlights the ultimate success of marrying artistic intellectual property with that blind box gamification model we talked about. They haven't just created a popular product, they have engineered an entirely new economic category.
But it's not all smooth sailing. Pop Mart is currently walking a very precarious tightrope, balancing artificial scarcity against market saturation. On one hand, the massive resale market and the scalpers are seriously frustrating everyday fans who just want the product. To combat this, Pop Mart recently ramped up production to millions of units a month to try and crush those scalpers. But the risk there is immense. If Labubu becomes too easy to get, the FOMO evaporates, the prestige vanishes, and that multi-billion-dollar bubble could completely burst.
And we absolutely have to pivot here and look at the darker side of this phenomenon. Academic research into the blind box craze points to some severe hidden risks, especially for younger consumers. That dopamine loop we broke down earlier, it frequently escalates into compulsive buying. It causes emotional dysregulation, the massive high of the win constantly battling the crushing disappointment of a loss. And most alarmingly, researchers are warning that this continuous desensitization to chance-based spending is acting as a direct gateway to serious gambling behaviors in young people.
Yet even with those very real risks and the intense high-stakes economics swirling around it, the core appeal remains surprisingly pure. As New York Magazine perfectly summarized it, little kids love that they are both weird-looking and cuddly, and adults love that they get to feel like a kid while unboxing them. Casing Long's beautiful strangeness has somehow managed to effortlessly cross generational divides, offering a tactile piece of joy in an increasingly digital world.
Which brings us to a rather provocative question to wrap up this explainer. Are we just collecting art, or are we raising a generation addicted to the thrill of uncertainty? The Labubu phenomenon is an absolute masterclass in the convergence of algorithms, personal identity, and the commercialization of our dopamine receptors. It forces us to take a step back and ask what we are really buying when we hand over our money for that sealed box. Is it just a toy, or is it a feeling we simply can't live without? Keep questioning what's in the box.